Listen, y'all know the deal. I start the show. That means Justin's not here. However, our guy Andy Jordan is here, and that's always a fun time. We're excited to have him back. And honestly, it's a good week for Andy to come here. We got a lot going on. I mean, I know we're still, summertime is coming to an end. We're getting a little bit closer to training camp. The schedule came out as we talked about last week, but we actually have some legitimate basketball news to talk about on this podcast. Klay Thompson's going to Miami. Jonathan Kuminga is going to Minnesota. DeMar DeRozan's going to Denver. So expect us to talk about all that, but we're going to start in Cleveland. James Harden getting the most out of everyone. 3 years, $97 million to return to the Cavaliers. He, of course, opted out of his player option. The Cavaliers spent all summer flirting with LeBron James. Hard to argue there. And then, it certainly felt like once LeBron decided to go to the Sixers that this was a lock for James Harden to come back. Cleveland making the trade for Harden last year, giving up Darius Garland, the team going to the conference finals, the best run this core has had together. But to get to something that Andy and I talked about a little bit before the show started, James Harden is 37 years old at this point. He's getting a lot of money. How are you expecting Harden to age here? And is this Cleveland? I don't know. Do you think this is Cleveland doubling down on a team that may have hit its ceiling last year? Or is this something you feel like they had to do almost, given where they're at?
I think they had no other choice at this point, right? I think when they whiffed on LeBron is they have to do something, because if not, they weren't competing with anyone. I still don't think they're really going to compete. I mean, James is who he is, right? He's going to get you buckets. He's going to get you assists, but I've been about this for a while. I just don't think ultimately you can win with him. He's in that Trae Young Hall of Fame for me, where like, look, these are star players. Stephon Marbury, they're star players. You're not going to win with them. And I just think that's who James Harden is. I mean, it's just, that's who he's been his whole career. He's going to get you stats. He's going to have these huge games, and that's it. But you're not going to win with him. He's 37, man. Like, he's going to be 40 by the time this contract is up. You're going to be paying him, what, 33 mil, 30, a little bit around there. At 40 years old, no, that's just a bad contract in my opinion. But what are they going to do? If they didn't have him, what was their other option at that point? I mean, obviously they got Mario Hezonja. That's huge. So, Mario had a good European career, all right? I'll give him credit.
He got back into the league. No, you got to give him credit. Mario got back into the league. He could have just drifted off overseas and played over there. We'll see if he can get it back. But no, you're right. I mean, I think there's not much they can do. Though I will say, like, them getting Peyton Watson is a good move. We'll talk about that from the Denver perspective a little bit with the DeRozan thing. But like, that's a signing I like. I was a little surprised Denver didn't find a way to retain him, honestly. Cleveland getting him to lower his salary here a little bit is pretty good as well. I mean, I think he was going to be due like 40 million or up if he hadn't opted out. This will be, closer to 32. And as you said, he'll be 39, 40 years old when this ends. Right. I don't know. I mean, James still does a lot of things well on the basketball court. Like, he's still a good facilitator. The negatives are there. We know what they are. He's had a tendency to vanish in the playoffs at points. There's always been, I think at points he's been a better defender than he's been given credit for. But I also flash back to game one of the Eastern Conference Finals this past year. And, when New York had that massive comeback, what was a huge part of that? It was them attacking Harden on every single possession.
100%.
And so, right, I'm a little wary about that in the sense that, I liked, again, the Peyton Watson pickup for them. So I don't want to say I don't want to say they had a bad off season, but I look around and, again, with so much of the East getting better, with the Knicks staying, the same and expecting to be competitive, bringing most of their roster back, a championship roster back. I don't know. I guess I'm not as inspired with this Cleveland offseason as I would hope I'd be with bringing James Harden back. It feels like with LeBron, the fit is a little better. You probably just get some more guys.
Still an overall better player than Harden. So it's just 100% he would have been a much better fit for them. But they didn't get him. Again, they needed to do something, and there wasn't a lot of options out there. You look at their roster, it's not exciting enough. Like, they're going to be a solid team. They're going to be a 4 and 5 seed around there again, right? Like, that's who they are. and that's who they're going to be again this year. And it's just not good enough, right? It's not going to be good enough against Philly. It's not going to be good enough against the Knicks. It's not going to be good enough against Boston. Like, even though Boston lost Brown, Boston is still gonna they're still gonna play well. They're still gonna do their thing. Detroit. I personally think Detroit overachieved last year. I don't see them doing that again. I think they'll come back down to earth. But even Detroit, I think, is better than Cleveland. Just I don't. I think they've maxed out, and now they're just very similar to Minnesota, if I'm being honest, where they're just trying to milk it as much as they can and hope that they get that strong run in the playoffs and make some noise. But ultimately, those rosters are not good enough to win.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see with Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota at least is so radically different. So, maybe we'll see if that's it. Where Cleveland, moving Garland was because a type of swing that I'm not mad at them taking to go to get Harden. I mean, the biggest upside to me, if there's a chance to really take it to the next level for them, would be the true Evan Mobley superstar leap. Evan Mobley's a great player. If he becomes the player where like the potential is looked like at points and becomes truly that guy, then it's a different story. I mean, we know what Donovan Mitchell is, and I'm not even saying that as a negative thing. Like, he's a good player. This roster is solid. I actually do have them a little bit above Detroit, and not even just because the playoff series, but it's more of like, because I'm in the same boat with you with Detroit. I think Detroit is going to regress this season, but I think it's also part of like the roster changes as well. They just have lost some guys. It'll take some more. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends how the Duren situation plays out too. I kind of like them betting on spacing, but a lot of the chemistry they had last year got blown up. I mean, even with a guy like, with Isaiah Stewart leaving, with Tobias Harris leaving, like there's some significant changes there.
I think that Tobias Harris loss is going to be more than people think. Tobias just happens to be one of those guys that like he just does something to the roster. I mean, Look, I'm not the hugest fan of his, but at the end of the day, he's a true professional. He does what he needs to do. He motivates. He gives you those games where if you don't have him, you're going to lose. And all of a sudden, that's the game he decides to like go, 20-10. Like it's, Tobias, I think, is a bigger loss than they probably are thinking about right now. I do think that's going to impact the locker room.
It's big from the locker room perspective.
Squad, but
you're not tricking me into saying nice things about Tobias Harris, Andy. It's not happening. But I will say it's a big loss. It's for sure a big loss for the locker room. Like Tobias Harris is a good guy. He seemed to have provided a lot of. I mean that roster consistently. When they would give interviews, they always spoke highly about him.
Maybe that's where Gary Harris is coming in, right? Like maybe that's the role that Gary Harris is going to bring in, right? It's just like, hey, that locker room guy, the guy that's been in the playoffs a long time, the guy who's been in battles, that veteran presence. Because if you look at the roster, they just don't have a lot of like experience. Like,
it's just different. I mean, I guess that's the thing. Like, they did get John Collins. They brought in Isaiah Joe. I mean,
like the Isaiah Joe thing. I think Isaiah Joe is a good thing for them. Especially when Cade goes to the bench. That was a huge struggle for them. I think Isaiah Joe's going to help with that just because you can give him the ball. He can score on his own. I think that was a big part that Detroit was missing was when Cade went to the bench, they didn't have a go-to scorer and they didn't have someone that can facilitate. At least with Isaiah Joe, you can give him the ball. He can get you a bucket. You can kind of survive those minutes without Cade. Where I think that was a big problem for them in last year, where when K went out, the splits just weren't there. But again, I think they overachieved last year, and I think this year we're going to see really who they are. They're not a bad team; they're a good team. They're going to be up there, but they're not winning 60-something games. They just went on amazing runs last year. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat. They were healthy for the majority of the year. I think they're one of the healthiest teams out there. All that plays an effect, right? And then sadly, when you get to the playoffs, not being biased here, but you're one Franz Wagner injury away from getting ousted out of the first round by the AC. So
yeah, and it really does look different. I mean, they lose in 7 to Cleveland in the second round, which like I don't want to say that there's not disappointment there, given the fact that they were the number 1 seed. I think that context matters, but You're right. Like that's real. I mean, the Magic were fully in control of that series. Then Franz goes down, and it radically. I mean, we'll talk about your Magic probably at some point later
It's
in the
okay.
show.
We don't have to talk too much about them.
We don't want to talk about them in the Eastern
No,
Conference
we want to
Risers.
stay quiet this season, right? Like last year, there was a lot of eyes on us, and rightfully so, with the Bane thing, and big expectations. And this year is the complete opposite. We really didn't make a lot of big moves. Everybody's counted us out. I mean, I've seen people put it as like in the 10th seed. You know what? I'll take that. I'd rather not have any kind of attention and us have the Detroit year where everything just clicks and we're injury free and we're winning the games we're supposed to win. There is a Detroit type run in the Magic this season. Like every season, I feel like a broken record. It ultimately just comes down to health for us. Like it really does. If we're healthy, we're going to win games and we're going to be up there competing. If we're not, we're going to do exactly what we've been doing the last few years. So
Yeah.
it's the same song and dance. It's like a recorded speech. Watch last year's podcast with me and you. It'll be the same words.
You sound like me talking about the Sixers last year so
well,
bad.
you can't say that now because
I
Sixers.
really can't. No, it's crazy.
Woo!
It's like I'm not fully, and the reality is I'm never going to fully be unjaded. It's impossible for me to be unjaded with this franchise entirely after the past 10 years. But like, yeah, well, like who the hell am I going to complain about? My offseason consisted of getting Jaylen Brown and LeBron James. Like this roster was kind of capped. Like I love the Boston victory. You get swept out by the Knicks though. You have kind of a weird like two timeline thing going on almost with Embiid and Paul. It's just like basically my takeaway after all this, Andy, and I've said this a bunch off but I need to formally like just say it on the podcast. You know what I really want to know? What was Terrell Morey doing on a day-to-day basis? Because you're telling me this way off season was possible with the roster we had the entire time. Like what was Terrell Morey doing in that office every day?
Still trying to find a way of getting James Harden back.
Like so. I mean, like I was so out after the Jared McCain trade too. Like that really was just so, because that was so unforgivable and still is from like a purely perspective. Like there was no planet where the Sixers should have given up on Jared McCain as early as they did. That was such a predictably bad trade, and I loved it, honestly. Like that was my thing. I wanted Jared McCain to cook in OKC despite the Sixers. They deserved it. But
do you get LeBron if you wouldn't have traded McCain? Like, isn't there like, because you traded him literally for nothing. So
I think that gets more. That might have got more out of the paint.
Allow you to kind of snowball some of these other transactions that got you to the place. So maybe, I mean,
if we want to make that the lead, if we want to make that the first domino that like starts to fall into like, and then you get Daryl Morey fired, because obviously, like, right, we don't hire Daryl Morey, then we don't hire Mike Gansey. If we don't hire Mike Gansey, who doesn't know? He takes a crazy swing for. I mean, like, again, I still can't fathom that LeBron James is a Philadelphia 76er. Like, I just wake up daily and that feels like an affirmation for me at this point. But it all comes down to the shock of, like, the Jaylen Brown. I mean, dude, we were on this podcast, Justin and I, talking about, like, well, maybe he'd go to Portland prior to the Ja Morant trade. Like, we had all these, like, potential trades for Jaylen Brown mapped out. And I remember when that news broke, I was down in Virginia with my family. It was because it was right before the 4th of July. It was like right around that weekend. And I literally, my phone was kind of like, battery was low. I was going down to sit by the water. I was like, let me go read. I'm going to go like take a break, like truly not have my phone near me. And I plugged it in and I went down and I came up 50 minutes later. And it's one of those where it's like, I see the number of notifications and it's like, all right, what happened? What did I miss? And it's truly one of the few like what moments when I found out that we traded, because trading for Jaylen Brown was so. It still is. It's unfathomable. Like seeing that dude in the Celtics and having so many battles with this guy, year in and year out. Him being a Sixer, like I didn't even think there'd be a world where the Celtics would be willing to trade him to us, and that's where it's still such a. And I
think that's. More than anything, I think that was the shocking part. Yeah. It's like, you gave him to Philly? Yeah. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, out of all the teams, like, you mean to tell me that was truly the best package? I doubt that. Like, I just ship that man to the West. Like, you don't want anyone near him.
That's my thing. Put him in the West.
That's going to be a fun game. I can't wait to watch that game. Like, that's going to be an exciting matchup.
But that goes back to my jaded point though, and this is always, and part of this has just been, again, like up until this, obviously this past year notwithstanding, listen, as much as it pains me to say it, the Celtics have largely beaten the Sixers the large majority of my life, and for a lot of other people's lives too. um and I'm still just the way the Fultz trade turned out. And I'm never going to be the revisionist history here and say that the Sixers are wrong to make that trade to go for number one overall. I loved it at the time. I was fully on that swing. Markelle Fultz was the consensus number one overall pick. Like, again, I don't want to rewrite history here, but like, God, dude, the way that played out, where like Fultz immediately, I mean, gave the Sixers next to nothing and then gets traded to Orlando. And then Jason Tatum, who we could have just drafted at 3 most likely, ends up becoming this all NBA world beater.
I thought
it's brutal. I'm jaded about that, man.
I thought it was a bad trade the moment that it happened. Not because no one saw Fultz, unfortunately, what happened to him. No one saw it. I thought Fultz was the number one pick. I thought he was amazing. But if you're Philly, you had Simmons, who needs the ball. He is your ultimate distributor at that point, right? We have to think of the context of what it was at that moment. At that moment, Simmons was like, he's going to be multiple All-NBA.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's still Ben. Like, he's at the peak of Ben.
Probably the highest it was been. Why would you draft a guy that also needs the ball like Fultz? Like, Tatum just made the perfect sense to me. You had your Embiid, right? You had your distributor, because Simmons at his high was never a scorer, defender, distributor. Give him that wing scorer in Tatum. Like, that just made sense to me. Fultz, because Fultz wasn't a three-point shooter. Fultz was a drive, into the paint, distribute, create his own shot in the middle. That's what his game was. So to me, I didn't think it was a good trade. I thought it was bad. Pretty much from the get-go. I didn't think it was going to be like this. But I thought Tatum was the right draft for you guys at that moment.
It turns out you were right, fit-wise, about that entirely. I mean, I think Markelle was a great three-point shooter at Washington, and so I think that's where I think the fit, it wouldn't have been necessarily as awkward as you think, because I think Markelle was a good three-level scorer, and I think he and Ben, I think it would have unlocked Ben's drives a lot more too. So like, I think the fit could have been there. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue the way that Tatum's career went with anything you just said. I mean, probably, like, of all the takes I've had on this podcast, I think I thought Josh Jackson was going to be so much better than Jason Tatum was when I had them to.
I thought Josh Jackson. Look, man,
dude,
Josh Jackson was a huge miss for me, and the one that I will always say was, I thought Stanley Johnson was going to be an absolute stud.
He was such a good athlete, dude.
Just wrong, dead wrong on both of those. So I've had my fair share of completely missed scenarios, and that was one of them.
You couldn't tell me that Tatum was going to be good in the NBA that year he was drafted. Like, I just was convinced. Like, I would have been so upset if the Sixers took Tatum. And like, listen, apparently I did not know ball on that front. It happens. Like, what are you going to do? But that trade, any transaction, I mean, and I'm sure it'll get to some point where it gets a little less wary, but any major transaction with the Celtics, I'm going to be wary of in hindsight. And I've had, like, again, I've had multiple people, objective non-Sixers people, be like, dude, why are you not fired up more about this trade? You guys fleeced the Celtics. What are you talking about? Everybody's out. Even Bill Simmons is on his podcast, like, losing his mind about it. And I'm just like, listen, it doesn't matter. I'm never going to not be jaded on that front until I see he has to go on ball. If he goes on balls this year, then maybe it'll start changing a little bit. And I certainly think he can. I mean, I think if the Sixers are going to be
a great roster around him, like,
yeah,
that roster is built so well, which is, I was not that shocked when LeBron went to them. Like, I really thought that was one of the places that just made sense. Now that I think he was going to go there, no, right? I really thought he was going to go to, like, the big ones, right? The Miamis, like, the ones that everybody was talking about. But when you look at it, he doesn't have to be the number one distributor. It's going to be Maxey. He doesn't have to guard the best perimeter person. That's going to be Brown. He doesn't have to be the go-to scorer, right? He can be the third or fourth. Like, he can literally just coast in every aspect of the game. I don't know that LeBron has ever had an opportunity to do that, right? He's always had to be the number one in something, right? Distributor, go-to scorer, like, always. Not in this Philly team. Like,
No.
he can be the second or third guy in pretty much every aspect of the game. So he's going to be able to coast. He's going to be able to rest. You know, he's got the best schedule that the NBA could possibly give him. Let's not go down that, but give me
No,
a break.
listen, Adam Silver admitted. Adam Silver didn't even try to hide it. That man went on television and said, LeBron, I need you to hurry up and decide so I can make the schedule.
What the
He
heck?
didn't even hide it.
So yeah, you're just gifting him like this season, right? Where he's just gonna chill. He can play like, 50 to 60 games. And as long as he's full to go for playoffs, that's all you need. Your squad is good enough without him to get to the playoffs. You just need to add him at the end and have him ready to roll. Like, Philly's gonna be a problem. Like, I don't know if I'm like, oh, they're the favorites. I'm not there with them yet, but they're gonna be a problem, especially if they're healthy. Like, I just don't trust Embiid to ever be healthy. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question mark. And the reason why I think nobody should run away with it necessarily is like, look, that's going to always be there. There's no way around it. I also think just the reality is, given that, again, with the Knicks running the majority of their roster back, I mean, the only big change is Mitch for Drummond. And while that's a little bit of a drop off defensively, I don't even think that's that big of a drop off.
yeah, Drummond's for all his things. Drummond's a really good offensive rebounder. He clogs the paint. Like, he's serviceable as a big man.
Yep.
So he's gonna do his job. I think the Knicks, the Knicks are good, man. The championship team. They came back.
That consistency
take it away.
matters. Like, I think that's where you can't just, I can't anoint the Sixers even with my homer hat to be like, oh, they're ready to go right away. But yeah, if everything clicks, because it's not just the starting five. Like, that's the other thing to me too, is like they just nailed the depth moves. Like all the depth, there may be a backup big away. That's something you hopefully can get during the season, or ideally a Dembona breaks out. Like, that would be the dream scenario if he's able to truly play that backup big. But I mean, that's certainly important as well. Like you said, with the Embiid constant injury risk. But I mean, yeah, it's hard not to. Again, I feel like a broken record with this, but like it's getting Dean Wade.
Or do you let VJ come off the bench?
I don't know. I mean, you start him off the rip. Like, I don't think you got to just that five. I think you have to give a shot here, and I think that's something they talked about is where because I think VJ, a lot of people who are high on VJ Edgecombe, and it's hard not to be after his rookie year. I think there are people who are rightfully a little bit like, hey, is this gonna stunt his development? He's gonna have to sacrifice here a bunch. But that's the thing is like, I think a lot of the misconception around the Sixers getting, in my opinion, so far with LeBron is where it's like, right, I don't think LeBron and Embiid are going to be the main guys here. Like, if the Sixers are going to win, their main offensive guys who are going to be putting up numbers every night to me are going to be Jaylen Brown and Maxey, and then a little bit of VJ as well. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. And I mean, Tyrese said it a little bit the other day in an interview, is where he's like, almost like, hey, we need to tell VJ, like, no, be aggressive, be you. I know you're a second-year player. Like, go out, get your shots, do what you're going to do.
I would love to see BJ come off the bench and just school second units and start Wade as your 3-and-D guy. I mean, that's a role that's perfectly built for him.
Yeah.
And with all those weapons in the starting lineup, you kind of need that guy that's, hey, I'm just here, play defense, hit those threes. I feel like VJ is kind of wasted in that. Let him cook the second units, man, where he can just come in and say, give him the ball and go to work, right? Get yours that way. But, I'm not the coach, so we'll see what happens with them.
Him and Anthony Simons too, man. That's the other pickup that I just love for this roster so much. Is it's like, I feel like Simons is a definition of a guy pickup who you're going to get into a playoff series. It's going to be one of those games where both offenses are kind of stale, and then Simons is just going to randomly give you like a 16-point third quarter that changes the entire game. Like, that's exactly the type
he's
of
got to
players
be the favorite to win Sixth Man of the Year. Like, if he just does what he does, why could he's positioned perfectly to be Sixth Man of the Year.
At that point too, you're just, if any of these young guys break out, whether it's Falon, whether it's Justin Edwards, whether it's Dominic Barlow, like, if you can get any little bit of contributions out of those guys off the end of the bench then too, Again, it's hard to argue. Like I'm still far from anointing them the favorites. You know, San Antonio is going to be right back in the mix. Oklahoma City is going to be right back in the mix. Who knows? I mean, somebody may surprise in the East. You know, like there may you never know. There's going to be some team every year. But listen, I hope for it would be very on brand for the Magic to make a run this year. I think, like you said, when the
100% on
expectations
brand,
are low
right?
and no one's there, no one's expecting them. That's totally when the Magic go on a run. I feel like.
We're gonna do it again. We're gonna prevent LeBron from going to the finals and going against Wemby or something like that. Like,
Oh
it's gonna
God.
be that '09 all over again where we robbed the world of Kobe LeBron. Well, we're gonna rob the world of Wemby and LeBron this year. Like that, something like that. I don't know if LeBron would still be the one that you would want to see in the finals though. But I can't think of anybody else in the East that we're like, ooh, that's the matchup that we want to see in the finals. I don't think we have that because we already saw the Knicks.
No, I mean
So
there's better players, but from a purely star power perspective in the
that's what I'm talking
NBA,
about, the star power part.
but it's that big. It's not even just LeBron too. It's that always like it's him, it's Steph, and it's Kevin Durant are always still the three. Like, and again, there are players better than them. I mean, multiple players better than
Mhm.
all of them at this point. But like that's the one thing, and not to like totally randomly pivot, but like the NBA long term, star power wise, that is going to be the one thing to watch is these guys truly do start to fade out, which it also has just helped that they've all aged so well and are continuing to
Yeah.
play into their late 30s and early 40s and still play meaningful minutes, not just like stapled to the bench minutes either. I think that's, it's going to be, and I think there are plenty of candidates for sure. I mean, obviously the league would love for Wemby to be one, but I mean, so far there have been, flashes from guys to maybe take that mantle a little bit. You see it from Ant, you see it from Jokic a little bit, but like they haven't like ran with it the way. Even the guys necessarily like you look at Giannis, for example. Like Giannis is well into his 30s now, and Giannis still hasn't like necessarily ever been that most popular guy. I mean, maybe for that one summer after they won the
Yeah.
title, but it doesn't feel
Mhm.
like he's been the
He had
like
that. He had the streak
household
of the
name.
MVPs and the champ. Like that was his like peak, but that was it. It was like a quick, and then after that, he was just not the dude anymore.
And even with him going to Miami now, like that's in theory, that's a major superstar power move. That would be that, it feels like that is maybe not getting talked about the way that you would think
I
it would
think
have
because
even two
Miami
years ago.
literally lost every other player that they had. Like he went from what the 10th team or the 11th team to the 10th team in the like it. Miami was what 10th last year, 10th, ninth,
Yeah.
something like right.
Yep.
Milwaukee was 11th. They literally just that's what they did. They just went from 11 to 10. Like I know Miami people are gonna hate me for it. I don't care. Like it. I don't think Miami's going anywhere. Like they lost way too much depth. That's just not enough. You don't have enough to do anything in the East.
All right, we're gonna pause on that here for a second because we're gonna come back right to Miami. Welcome to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. I'm Kevin Rafuse. My co-host Justin Cousart off for the week. Our guy Andy Jordan is here though, filling in. Follow him on Twitter at Andy's Magic Minute. Listen to the podcast wherever you can find your podcasts and watch the show on YouTube. Just subscribe. Search Driving Dish NBA podcast and you'll see all the video episodes there. And now a word from our sponsors. All right, so now we can come back and now we can make the Miami fans, we can rile them up here a little bit. And it's fitting because, I mean, we do need to talk Miami with Klay Thompson officially going over to the Heat, bought out by the Mavericks. Instantly goes in right away. It's funny, when Justin and I talked Heat a little bit a few weeks ago, it was kind of looking like it was going to be Bradley Beal to come in and be the shooter, the veteran shooter who goes on a quick deal. Instead, Bradley Beal stays in LA with the Clippers on a 2-year deal. They do bring Klay in. I mean, look, Klay is a fit there. Again, Miami desperately needs shooting. I think that's the one big question that everyone has with this Giannis Bam pairing is, hey, come playoff time, are they going to be able to space the floor? They've lost a guy like Norm Powell, who you mentioned. Keeping Wiggins will be big, but at the end of the day, like, right, I think there are fair questions about. The only reason I'm giving Miami, I think, any benefit of the doubt, and not just being like all these questions are valid about how are they going to space and like, isn't this just going to be an offensive nightmare come playoff time, is that I just love Eric Spoelstra, man. Like, I still think Eric
Oh,
Spoelstra is one of the
he's
best
the
coaches
best
in the
coach.
league.
I agree.
And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt to figure this out. Like, this is still Giannis Antetokounmpo at the end of the day. top three player at the worst for probably the better course of this last half decade. But there's been some injuries, some tread on the tires in Milwaukee. I think the tenure there was a little awkward. So, I mean, I think that's the thing you got to hope for too. If you're Miami, is like in a weird way, like Giannis. I don't want to say he has like something to prove this season, but he kind of does a little bit. Like those Milwaukee teams, they won the title and they never really seriously made another run at it. It feels like this past season they made the moves, the adjustments moves, and moved on from Middleton, bringing Miles Turner. And them being out of the playoffs, they had expectations. Like that's the thing is it was like you had teams ahead of them. Miami was dealing with all sorts of injuries last year. They're dealing with coming off the Jimmy Butler saga, for example, as well. Like there were plenty of teams with like quote unquote more adversity that still were making the playoffs and finishing better than Milwaukee was. And that was a team that was pretty much all in last season. So in a weird way, like in a new place, like there's going to be pressure on Giannis to perform, but you're right. Like depth is the name of the NBA these days. And it just doesn't feel like Miami has the depth, even with Klay, who I do think, despite he's not nearly as good of a defender as he used to be, obviously, but he's still going to give you a buck in a pinch. I think that matters for this team, but you need more.
I mean, he shot what, like 38% last year?
Yeah.
On like 8, 7, like he's still going to be able to shoot the heck out of the ball with Giannis and Bam. He's going to get shots. They also got Tim Hardaway Jr., like another guy who can just go nuclear out of nowhere. I mean, he's a guy that in the playoffs, he can win you a game, right? He can just go berserk and, shoot, 5, 8 threes and then boom, he wins the game for you. So I did like that one. I've always been a big Bobby Portis fan. I love Bobby Portis. I love how he plays. I love what he brings, the energy, his nastiness. I've been a fan since Arkansas. Just love the way he plays. So I think that's good. But what are you going to do with Bobby, Bam, Giannis? Like, they're all essentially bigs. Like, none of them can guard a perimeter player. None of them can guard a small forward. Giannis maybe, but in 13 years, he can't do it like he used to, like that, right? He can't stay in front of players like that anymore. So, I don't know. I just don't. I don't see that Miami has enough. Who's their point guard now? Is it Mitchell? Like, who runs the offense? I know Bam's a great passer. I know Giannis creates. But they're not really like half-court offensive. Maybe Bam a little bit, but there's not really a true point guard on that team. So I don't know. I don't see Miami being much better than they were last year.
No, they're all. I mean, it's borderline. Like I don't say Hardaway be the point, but like it almost feels like it's going to go that way a little bit. And he's far from your traditional point guard, but right. Otherwise, it's going to be Davion Mitchell. I mean, defensively, that's the one thing I feel like you mostly can hope you hang your hat on with that team. Like you're going to have great perimeter defense with Mitchell and with Wiggins. That combo is going to be solid. Obviously, Bam and Giannis speaks for itself, right? Like Giannis with the injuries, maybe not the like lockdown defender he used to be, but he's still be pretty good. And having Bam behind him, I think is going to, free him up from a lot of the more difficult matchups, allow him to roam a little bit. But right, it's going to come down to that offensive creation then. And I think that's the big question is who's going to step up, who's going to be able to do that. I do think getting Portis is a good move for them because it felt like he was a throw-in in that trade, and I don't feel like he should be considered a throw-in. And if worse comes to worse, like, you could move him again during the season if you need to.
I think that's probably going to happen. I think eventually you're going to have to sacrifice something to get more of that guard help. And Bobby just seems like the ideal person for them to sacrifice.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. But I mean, in a vacuum, I do like the Klay Thompson pickup for them again. I'm not going to harp over their lack of shooting and then complain about that. But right, I don't think anybody is expecting this to be the big thing that moves them up the conference necessarily. They'll be better than the play-in position in my mind, of course. I don't expect them to finish around 10
better
again.
In the play-in position had they just stayed the team that they had, right? That's my opinion. Had they just stayed afloat, they probably could have gotten the 8th seed, which is probably what this team is like. Their max is going to be 7th, 8th seed.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that team last year they were 43 and 39, and I don't, with Giannis they'll be a lot better. I mean, I'm looking at the teams that they were behind last year, and the problem is right is it's like you play the game of who got worse, and there aren't many, I think. Now they'll jump by getting Giannis. I think just temporarily, I'll jump them for sure over Charlotte. I jump them over probably like it becomes the question of like Orlando, Atlanta, and Toronto, right? And how far do you think Detroit is going to fall? Like, I feel like that's that next kind of grouping there that's all going to finish somewhere between like 9 and 5 necessarily.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, depending what Boston does too. I mean, even with Paul George, like I just feel like right, Boston last year with no expectations made it work. You're gonna have a full off season of recovery for Tatum. I know it's coming off the Achilles, but like I'm gonna give Joe Mazzulla and crew the benefit of the doubt there. And then right with the Sixers and the Knicks, like I'm gonna bump them towards the top right away. I mean Toronto is the biggest wild card here because it's like what you still gotta wait to see how this Kawhi thing is gonna play out. If that's official, if Toronto is the perfect candidate, you would imagine would have some regression after they feels like they overachieved last year, get to the 5 seed. Like you
Yeah.
totally could see them drop down the ranks. But with Kawhi, a little more intriguing there. I don't know. I think 4 or 5 is realistically my best case scenario for Miami. I think you got to be thrilled if you're finishing around there.
Yeah, I don't see them going that high. If you ask me to like try to be unbiased and hide my Miami hatred, I think like 6 is probably the absolute best that they can do. I just not as they currently are built. They can make a trade and get some guard help that's really gonna, balance that team out because I think they're really top heavy right now. Maybe, but as it stands today, I just don't see them being much better than a 6 seed at best. That,
Yeah.
but
No, I understand. And I think that's majority. I would imagine that's sort of what the predictions look like there. But that's enough of the East for a little bit. Let's go out west here for a little bit. Well, actually, this is kind of a funny transition. I'm going to go to Minnesota. We're going to talk Jonathan Kuminga here in a second. But I do got to ask, did you see the report about how if the NBA expands how with Seattle and Vegas, which it certainly seems like are going to be the two destinations. Did you see they're going to move Minnesota to the East, it seems?
yeah, and at first I was like, that makes no sense to me, but I guess it does. It's close to Indiana, it's close to Chicago. So those are Eastern teams like I Detroit, right? Like they're all I guess that makes sense. At first I was like, that makes zero sense to me. Memphis made more sense to me, but it does make sense with Indiana, Chicago, Detroit. I guess that works.
I mean, if
Um,
you
man,
look
I
at the
love to
map.
have Ant in the East just to have that star power here. Um, I love him, but it's definitely so wouldn't both teams go to the West though? Vegas and Seattle?
Yeah, Vegas and Seattle both go west, then Minnesota goes east. I feel like I have to look at it again. I feel maybe yeah, I guess it would be a little out of balance then, but who knows? Either way, yeah, I mean, because right, it had to be either Minnesota or Memphis. And when you look at a map of the United States, I think there's a part that goes, well, wait a minute, Memphis is pretty much further east at this point. I mean, and Memphis would have made sense a little bit too in terms of like the Southeast, right? Like you've got Atlanta, you've got Charlotte, you've got Orlando, you've got Miami that are all relatively around there. But it almost to that point too gets like if I'm going to argue Memphis should go to the East, then should I argue like New Orleans should go to the East too at that
That's just how
point?
I was thinking. It's like New Orleans will make more sense than Memphis.
Yeah.
Because Louisiana is just geographically just closer to the Georgia, Florida, that area. So
But if they want to
that
keep the
makes more
like
sense.
if they want to keep the New Orleans and like Memphis and the Texas teams together, I kind of get that because that's all regionally like it makes sense. It's not the cleanest fit in the world, but like none of these are super duper clean. And you're right, like with Minnesota, given their proximity to Indianapolis, to Chicago, to Milwaukee, to Detroit, like those are all pretty, quick flights. So I think
It
it
makes
makes sense
sense.
there.
That it does make sense.
I
At
dude,
first I did not agree, but then I forgot who I was talking to, somebody online I was talking to, and they called it out. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like that, it's a perfect fit there.
the one thing, dude, I got to or wonder. If you're Minnesota, you're like, man, do you wish this happened like 2 or 3 years ago? Because like, right, this is a Minnesota team that's been in conference finals, has been
Yes.
very competitive, has in certain Eastern conferences, and not to there's been a lot of great teams that have come out, especially making the finals runs at this point. But like, right, you in these past few years go, man, we've been slugging it out in the West. We've been dealing with Prime Jokic. We dealt with OKC. We dealt with San Antonio last year, and you go, oh man. I don't know. Like, do I feel better? I mean, you can't say the Knicks this year because the Knicks just beat San Antonio, who was came out of that conference. But it's like, right,
Yep.
the year Indy came out, do you feel like, hey, maybe we'd had a better chance in the Eastern Conference? Even some of these past few years, like Minnesota's certainly been a viable contender these past few years. Um,
They're a good
I
team.
don't know.
They're a strong team.
I'm excited for Minnesota this year. Like truly, like, and listen, there's a chance this all goes spectacularly wrong. But man, I think it's going to be really entertaining, and I kind of like them taking a swing and switching up the roster here a little bit. The newest addition here is Jonathan Kuminga, ending his restricted free agency saga. 2 years, $12.4 million with the Timberwolves. They bring in Kuminga, asking him to use his size, kind of, obviously in the aftermath of losing Nas Reed, wanted to just shore up there a little bit. I mean, there's certainly a longer conversation to be had about Jonathan Kuminga and everything that's happened here over the past few years, from the end of his tenure in Golden State, to him rehabbing it here a little bit with Atlanta, but then all this restricted free agency stuff playing out. You know, regardless about how all that went down, though, I think this is a good fit for Minnesota. I'm not gonna lie, I like them picking up Kuminga here.
Look, I like, for the price that you're getting him, is definitely worth the gamble. I mean, this guy
Yeah,
has a ton of talent. I don't think anybody can deny that. I'll be honest, he's one of those guys that for me, I don't understand why it just hasn't worked out. Right? Now, full disclosure, I'm in the East, right? I'm in Florida. I don't catch a ton of Golden State games, right? Unless it's like the primetime games. So I don't know what was happening there. I saw him in Atlanta a little bit. He had his moments. Um, so I don't know. I don't know why it just hasn't really worked out for him. Because he has the talent and he puts these games together and you see him and it's like, my goodness. But then, you go 2 or 3 games and it's like, where are you? 8 points, 3 rebounds, bunch of turnover. Like, so it's with him, it's a little bit weird for me why it hasn't worked out. But man, you gotta like that Minnesota team. Like, I'm not a huge fan of LaMelo, but he's talented, right? How's he gonna work out with Anthony? I'm a huge fan of AO. I think that's a great, great pickup for them.
yep,
So I like Terrence a lot. Shannon, the kid from Illinois, right? Was from Illinois, wasn't he not?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So they have some depth. They have a good team. Um, I'm excited to see how it puts together. I think Anthony Edwards and LaMelo are either going to be amazing or they're going to end up hating each other by like January. So we'll see how that works out. But I feel like they're similar in their personalities when it comes to on the court. Um, but we'll see what happens with them. It's Minnesota's going to be a fun team to watch one way or the. If there was a like a hard knocks for basketball, I would want it to be Minnesota this summer. Like I would
So
definitely
much.
want to see how all of this works out, all of this dynamics, all of these personalities that are there. Minnesota's going to be interesting.
They're an automatic top five league pass team for me. And like, as I kind of said to start this conversation, like this could either be absolutely beautiful or absolutely horrific. And I'm not quite sure yet. I'm leaning beautiful right now. I like them taking a LaMelo ball swing. I don't think they gave up too much at the end of the day. I think the upside is still so high there. And that's the biggest reason that I'm thrilled about it. With Kuminga here, I mean, the other thing that I think is important is to what you said, in the sense that Anthony Edwards is a player who needs the ball in his hand a lot of the time. LaMelo Ball is a player who needs the ball in his hand a lot of the time. Like Jonathan Kuminga is not really a high usage guy, but I still think he's the type of player that can make an impact without the ball being in his hands 24/7. Some of his decision making, not just with contractually, has been questionable at times. But I also didn't blame him for everything in Golden State. Like Golden State was on that weird two timeline thing. he would go in and out of the lineup. I will say it's a little like alarming that he couldn't get along with Steve Kerr, who clearly has had a lot of success in the league. And but at the same time, like I do think he's shown enough flashes for me to still be intrigued. He's still really young too. Like at the end of the day, he's
Oh, yeah.
24 years old. As you said, like the potential is there. Like he's a great athlete. Like he has all the tools to be a really good NBA player. And that's why this is a no-brainer for Minnesota. Like you're not paying any money for him right now. You like they should
No,
this is 1,000% the
super.
type of swing that Minnesota should be taking. And it's the type of around the edges move that's going to win you games and meaningful. Like, because I'm with you. Like, I love going to get to Sonu next year. They've still got Gobert in the mix. Like, I know the front line is a lot different, but like, you knew it wasn't going to
Yes.
work with Randall. Like, that was pretty clear after last season that it wasn't working there. You know, Nas Reed's a fan favorite. I'm not going to, that one's a little tougher to give up for me. I think you're, but
That
again,
that's what you have to give up to get a guy like again. And I'm not a LaMelo fan. I'm really not. I just not a fan of his game at all. I think he cares more about looking good than being good. Um, and I think that may be ultimately what becomes an issue in Minnesota.
yeah,
Um, is look, Charlotte has been pretty bad for a long time. They finally have something going, and the first thing they do is get rid of their quote unquote star. To me, that just has flags all over it, right? Either they're just that
it
dumb
does.
or they really know something that, and I really like the last couple of seasons, off seasons, what they've done, the talent they collected. I thought they had a terrific draft. So the fact that they were like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and reset and get rid of LaMelo, to me that's something that needs to be watched out for. Um, and again, man, I think Minnesota's gonna be a fun team. It just may be a fun team for people who are not fans of Minnesota, because I can definitely see it being uh, an interesting movie to watch this year with them.
It's so intriguing though. That's why you can't, because
Yeah,
you're
oh,
right. Like
100%.
Charlotte moving on from LaMelo Ball is so bizarre because that was my immediate reaction. Is like, right, you guys just had your best season in years. You win a meaningful play-in game. Like you were one of the better stories over the second half. Their offensive rating was through the roof, and they spent the entire season blowing it up. Basically, you move on from LaMelo, you move
And
on
talk
from
about another
Miles
guy who's
Bridges.
super young, right? LaMelo's 24, but I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, they had this great thing, but then they got mud stopped by the Magic, right? Like
yeah.
it was embarrassing.
It was, and I was,
So
and given especially the way that Orlando, I mean, you know how it was at that point, but like Orlando, the first playing game got ran out of the gym by Philly, and I didn't even think we were playing particularly well at the end of the year. And then, right, a good gut check win for Orlando to win that game against Charlotte. But right, like I think there were a lot of people who felt Charlotte's momentum was rolling post that Miami win, and I mean, there's certainly like beyond right. There's questions about whether LaMelo Ball can play winning basketball and the injury concern. Like that's my other big thing too. Is like LaMelo's missed a lot of time outside of last year and maybe one other season. That's valid, but the swing to take some of the offensive pressure off Minnesota, which Anthony Edwards has been begging for a while, for somebody else who can create. We know LaMelo Ball, if nothing else, can create. But going back to the Charlotte front, to your point, because I think at first in the past, right, this would scream like, man, classic Charlotte, a franchise that just doesn't feel like they know what they're doing. They're always kind of bad, except they haven't been recently. Like, I'm
no,
kind of
they've
with you
been
in the sense
making
that, like,
good
yeah,
moves.
Charlotte's management's kind of been on to something these last few
Yeah.
years. It feels like they know what they're doing here a little bit, right? Like great drafts. I like Brandon Miller's
And
upside still a ton too. You got
and
Khan at 4.
they've added some sneaky depth. Like you got players like Royce O'Neal, right? Like, oh, not a Royce O'Neal is a great role player to have on a team. Like he's one of those guys who's going to do his role, do it right, right? Kobe White, home
Yeah,
run in my opinion,
great pickup
right?
for them.
You get rid of LaMelo, you picked up Kobe White, awesome. You mentioned Brandon Miller, great. Look, Nas Reed, like they got some players. Zion James was really good for them last year, right? Like a guy who can defend, who can hit a shot. I just think they have something cooking, and they have like a good mixture of. I forgot they picked up Dennis Schroeder too. Like
Yeah.
they just have a good mixture of talented players and young guns that are gonna like carry them. I like that mixture for them. Um, Grayson Allen. Like they just have like something going, and I think Charlotte's going to surprise a lot of people. I know we're trying to in the West, but I think Charlotte's going to surprise a lot of people in the East this year. It's almost like what I've been saying about Trey, right? The moment Atlanta got rid of Trey, they took off. I feel very similar to Charlotte. You get rid of LaMelo, somehow that team's just going to breathe better. And they added depth and they added role players. They added more professionalism to them. I think that's going to work out for Charlotte's favor.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fall off at the bare minimum is going to be a lot less pronounced than people realize. Like, I think there are a lot of people you see they move on from LaMelo Ball and it goes, okay, we're going to regress, we're going to take a step back. We're like, no, I think they're absolutely going to be there in the mix. Charlotte's big question is going to be like, how good are their top guys? I think that's the set. Like, how good is Con Knipple? How good is Brandon Miller? If they're superstars and can truly like be the 1 and 2 on this team, right, with the depth that they built, all these other guys, then right, they'll be right there in the mix. Like I'm not saying they're going to win the Eastern Conference or anything crazy like that, jump off the roof, but like that's going to be a competitive team. They're not just going to like fold back and out of the playoff picture and suddenly go into the lottery or something like that. Like they're still here. They're competing. So is Minnesota to me. I mean, I think Minnesota. I look at the Western Conference, and again, OKC, San Antonio. It's hard to argue those two as anything other than the top dogs.
And then Denver, Minnesota. Those are your top four.
They're right there to me, and there is that little bit of a gap. And even like Minnesota to me, like Denver, I feel like I'm still giving a lot of credit to just having Jokic. It's like because Jokic is so brilliant that it'll give me more benefit of the doubt than they'll have for other teams. But like I probably put even with the changes, like Minnesota feels just like more ready to go at this point. There's more upside there.
Yes.
And I mean that does get us into Denver, of course, with DeMar DeRozan, the news of him going to Denver and signing there. A bit of an intriguing pickup for them, but a Denver team that has kind of tried some things here these past few years. Obviously a big swing a little bit ago with moving Michael Porter Jr., trying to reinvent this roster around Jokic and around Jamal Murray as they try to get back to the finals here. DeMar DeRozan is the latest example of that. I don't know. I go back and forth on this one. A part of me loves it because I think DeRozan can provide good minutes off the bench. Like I think he can get you buckets in a pinch. I don't think he's going to try to be your number one option. He's a veteran player. He's been around a long time. I think the biggest concern is something that you and I talked about a little bit before we started recording is that I don't know how well he's going to space with Jokic. I'm worried about that. I know the midi is back, but like, ideally, I want some shooters around him. And, you look at him, you play, and then you got Aaron Gordon still in the lineup too. Like, I don't know. That paint feels like he could get clogged a little quick.
And I think that's the thing, right? The beauty about Jokic is he's such a smart player. He's such a great passer. You can play him in the perimeter and basically he can orchestrate the offense. Awesome. But you're right. Like I that's what I mentioned before we started recording is DeMar DeRozan lives in the paint, essentially. He lives in the middle, right? Like it's that mid game. I don't know how that benefits Jokic ultimately. Can Jokic figure out how to play with him? Absolutely. The guy, again, brilliant basketball player. But how long can you sustain that for? Right. So I think the coaching staff is going to have to figure how to divide those minutes. When do you play DeRozan where you do give him the opportunity to be a number one option off the bench, right? When Jokic is resting. Because similar to what we mentioned about Kate Cunningham, when Jokic is on the bench, Denver just falls apart. So I think this will help alleviate that. I just don't know how much, right? And DeRozan just doesn't age, bro. Like he's the same dude over and over again. I think last year was probably his quote unquote worst year. He was still like 18-4-4. Like,
yeah.
Like he's still good. Like he still does his job. But I think that's the part that I struggle long term with Denver is how's that going to mesh up? And can Cameron Johnson be better than what he was? I think we were expecting a little bit more from Cameron Johnson.
Big time.
It just it didn't happen. It was, if you look at his raw numbers, it wasn't bad. But it maybe not having the ball as much like he was used to in Brooklyn, like maybe that impacted him. I don't know. I think if Cameron Johnson can snap out of it a little bit, at least come back more to normal, I think that will help. But yeah, Denver's in the heat of it. It's just that West, OKC and San Antonio, they ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
And it just doesn't feel like Denver is enough. Like their margin moves, their win around the margins moves haven't been enough. And again, like I don't mind bringing DeRozan in, but I think in the aftermath of the Peyton Watson scenario, I think that's not ideally like you feel a little better about it, but like losing Peyton Watson, somebody who was young, somebody with some upside, I think there's a bit of a sting there still. You're right. You need more out of Cameron Johnston, somebody who I was thrilled when Denver got. Like I thought that was such a
I thought it was
crucial
a great
pickup.
move.
Yeah. And I mean, look, they're going to be competitive. They've got Aaron Gordon around. Like they've got, again, good players, but I don't know. Like you look at the Nuggets teams that were going to the finals and even the year after when they were still, making the conference finals and being competitive out here. It just doesn't feel like this roster is as good. It doesn't feel like
Yeah.
they're as deep as some of these other teams in the Western Conference. And maybe again a little bit of just bad taste in my mouth the way the playoffs ended for them last year, but um, it they're not nearly as scary as they used to be. It feels like they're just asking Jokic to be brilliant again and pull them, which he'll get you pretty far, but is he going to win the Western Conference again when it's this loaded? I just have a hard time seeing that right
And
now.
I don't know if ownership cares, right? I think that
Yeah.
the moves that are being made is like, let's just be good enough, right? I don't think they're really going for it. I think it's just like when you argue a team like Minnesota making big moves, they're trying to do something, right? They're trying to snap out of it, right? And get through that ceiling. I don't think Denver's doing that. I think Denver got their ring, and I think Denver is just okay. Let's let's coast. Let's
Yeah.
just milk Jokic where we can and ride off into the sunset and rebuild again. But hey, we had great years and we got our ring, so we'll see.
Well, it just also got to the point too where it's funny because they're trying to like right. It feels like they're trying to shed salary and shed cap and all that, and they're still not under the second apron. Like there's this
Yeah.
team is still expensive. So on top of that, it's like if you're
Very
trying to
mismanaged.
yeah, if you're trying to shed the money, at least get under the apron. Like, listen, the second apron, we know what it is. It's a real factor on a lot of these teams at this point. There are real consequences if you're over that second apron. But it's like you got to pick one way or the other. If you're going to go on, like, either way, it doesn't feel like right on from a management perspective. They've done a good job here in the last few years, really defending this title. Like, you never can. This run is successful. It ended win a championship, but
Yep.
any chance of really building this thing up year after year, it feels like the window is, I don't want to, I don't want to fully say it's closed on Denver, but it kind of feels closed right now. It feels like
It feels
there's a little
close.
crack, there's a little breeze coming in, but it's not much.
It feels close to me just because again, OKC and San Antonio are just so well built and so young that they're not going anywhere. Like sincerely, like heaven forbid injuries, right? That's always the key thing. But if those teams are healthy, those are your top two teams. Like it's just top two teams in the league. The heck with the Western Conference. They're just the top two
Yeah.
teams in the league. Um, it's hard to try to go against those two behemoths and feel like you're going to be able to come out on top, right? Even like a Houston, I like it's just not enough, right? I that's why I feel like Denver is just satisfied with being competitive, being good enough, and just riding that wave as much as they can until Jokic decides to leave. I don't see Jokic as the type of player that's going to be like demanding trades. I think he's happy. He got what he wants, and as long as he's comfortable, I think he'll be gladly will stay in Denver for the rest of his career and ride it to the sunset. So I don't think Denver really has any kind of pressure to do more, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic would have to put the pressure on them. Like that's what it
Yeah,
would come down to. If Jokic really comes out and starts pressing, and almost the way that Giannis did a little bit in Milwaukee, where it's like, hey, we haven't defended this thing the way I want to. I want to be competitive. I want to do this. Then maybe you'll expect to see it because that's. I mean, shoot, if we're being players that we're watching that for this year, and of course he's one way more, but I mean, isn't that what we're watching with Steph Curry this year? Like that Warriors team is clearly going nowhere fast. Does Steph want to be the one team guy and ride it out into the sunset? You've won 4 titles. You're going to first ballot Hall of Famer. You got nothing to prove if you're Steph Curry. Or do you want to go chase somewhere? play meaningful minutes and give this another shot. I certainly feel like he might just do that. So
Really, I see. I don't know. I think it's more of the opposite. I think, again, he has nothing left to prove. So
yeah,
I think with him, it's more of a family thing, and he's a Cali dude. So like, I mean, at least that's where he's living, and I think his family's well established there. I don't see him wanting to pursue anything else at this point. I really don't. I think he had an opportunity to do that, and I think he's fine with just finishing out. I mean, how much more does Steph really have left?
that's the thing though. I feel like he kind of does have a lot left. Like I'm not.
Really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
feel like you could
Yeah.
talk me into Steph playing for another 4 or 5 years at this point. Like the franchise feels kind of stuck, but it doesn't feel like Steph Curry is the problem there. It feels like they just I don't know. It feels like he's leaned on them. And to be fair, they have largely. I mean, I like them taking the swing to get Jimmy. It worked for a little bit. They just didn't really have that full time because they just with injuries among other things. This current roster is going nowhere. And I think this is the first time where Steph Curry is just going into a season and going, we have no chance. We're getting smoked in the West by everybody. And that's maybe where you look, but I don't know. Maybe he's hungry to
And maybe
chase.
that's what it'll
Like,
take. Maybe it takes them getting beat up like that with no excuses, right? There's no injury excuse. There's no, we're just bad. Maybe that's what it takes for then Steph to be like, okay, look, I got 3 to 4 years left, right? I'm gonna jump on what you're saying. I got 3 to 4 years left. I'm not going through this for 3 to 4 years.
And look, they were doing the whole like I know they did the whole flirt with LeBron thing too, and they tried to land him in, but the Warriors out of everybody's plan that it felt like had a serious chance made the least sense to me because it was always like part of their plan was always prying Anthony Davis from Washington, and Washington the entire time was like, we're not trading Anthony Davis. He's not on the market. Like they weren't
Hmm.
picking up the phone. So it's like you guys keep you hang on this other factor that was literally never in play. So you'd have a real chance to bring LeBron in. Like the Wizards wouldn't have traded for the Wizards are very clearly trying to win games this season, or they wouldn't have traded
Oh,
for Anthony
100,
Davis, or would still be trying to move Anthony Davis. So
100%. Yeah,
uh
and they built a decent roster. I like the roster. One of my friends, JC, if you're listening, JC, shout out to you. He lives in Washington, D.C. He's very excited about the team that they have. He's a big basketball guy. So and he should be. Washington has an exciting, you talk about another team that is must watch. Look, Washington, if healthy, that's gonna be a fun squad to watch. Like
yeah,
they have some players.
there's valid questions about sort of why they pushed in a little bit now, or if it was just like, hey, let the young core grow organically. It's going to be there no matter what. But there is something to be about like, hey, these young guys, you got a number one overall pick coming in. You have a few young players you already had. You've got hopefully, and again, this is assuming best case scenario, a healthy Anthony Davis and a motivated Trae Young post Atlanta to hopefully kind of rehab his image here a little bit. Because I think, listen, the rest of the NBA world, I feel like caught up to your Trae Young opinions. Like the stock is low right now.
That's what I say. I've been saying this for years. Watch the tape. I've
Yeah.
been saying this for years. They finally listened to me. There you go.
But no, they're intriguing for sure. And if I'm a Wizards fan, like listen, they haven't had much to root for these past couple of years, to say the least. I mean, past 15 years, really, to say the least. There's more. They'll be competitive. They're going to win games. Like there's more excitement, there's more buzz around the franchise than there's been in a long time. I mean, I think look, that's just part of it too. Like as much as I want to like talk about preaching these plans and things like that. I do think there's the natural pressure on some franchises when it's like you haven't been good for a long time. Like you need to get fans in the arena. That matters too.
Hmm.
I think a lot of fan bases can stomach out a well thought losing plan, but when you have been good for a long time, it's almost easier to swallow a process, if you will, in Oklahoma City because they were competitive with Kevin Durant for a long time. Like they
Right.
had years in the past where they were in, the short existence of that franchise, they've been pretty good for the most part. I think even with the Sixers, where when the Sixers started it in 2013, they hadn't been great necessarily. I mean, certainly hadn't made the finals run since '01, but they never really were just like horrific either. They were never
Correct. Yeah,
finished. The Wizards have been finishing last like every year the past 5 years.
they
Like
they
that
have
that
been
wears on you after a while.
they have been the definition of bad. Like they really have. Like the opposite of Indiana, right? Like Indiana is the team that I can't really recall Indiana ever being bad. Like maybe they
No,
haven't
yeah.
been like the top team. Obviously, that team that made it to the finals, and then the Reggie team that made it. But like they've always somehow just always been there. Like just a solid competitive team, never tanked. Like Indiana has always been a competitive team. Washington is like the opposite of that. Like Washington has always just been bad for whatever reason. Like it's just never worked out for them. Nothing goes their way. They get these players with arenas and Hughes, and it just doesn't work out, right? Like it just, I don't know. Washington, I think that was the last time they were ever anything was with arenas.
Yeah, I mean, and then the brief run with John Wall and Bradley Beal, like, and that
Oh,
team was getting beat in
that's
the second round,
sorry,
but like
John.
that team that was fun. Like, I'll give them a little bit. They had Otto Porter in his early years. He had Gortat in his final years. Nene was there for a little bit. So, listen, little mid 2000s fun, but besides that, and even that team was pretty capped. Like, there wasn't,
Yeah.
they were never really seriously contending like that. But and who knows? But there will at least be some sort of intrigue around them this year. I'm telling you, Eastern Conference, dude. We even and then we still again we even mentioned Indy. There's gonna be a whole other little bit on Indy. We're not
Yeah,
gonna
when
do the
Tyrese coming back, like that
listen.
East is going to be extremely competitive this year.
It's gonna be
Very
good.
competitive.
There's gonna
There's
be
going to be a very good team that lands in the play-in.
yeah.
There is, right?
Shoot, there might be a good team that misses the play in. Like there may truly be a team that is not like a trying to win team is competitive day in and day out and still may just miss in the play in. I don't think there's going to be that. The just level of awful teams that feels like there is sometimes. There's always like 2 to 3 really bad, and there's going to be a couple. Like Milwaukee's going to be really bad this year. Brooklyn's going to be really bad this year, but it's not that like we're a long way from like the 8 seed down, just being under 500 and kind of bad. East has come a long way. I'm proud of the Eastern Conference, but listen, Andy and we got to talk food before we get out of here. I know we've been giving you a bunch of hoops. Unfortunately, that is one of the downsides not living in Central Florida anymore, is I can't go on food adventures with Andy anymore. But we got to live vicariously through each other. So talk to me, bud. What are we eating these days? What's good?
All right. So recently I discovered this place. It's been around for like 2 years, but the first time I went to it, called Smoke Made Meats. So the restaurant has only been open for a couple of years. The guy is already on the Michelin Guide in 2025.
Okay.
Like I went there, legit Central Texas barbecue. Like I've been blessed enough that I've worked in Texas. I've had the real thing. This is probably the best I've had outside of Texas, and it will rival some of the places I have there. Their brisket, my God, bro, it was just absolutely amazing. I mean, I send you the picture. The pork belly, like the way they serve it to you is like an inch and a half thick. Like it is just their mac and cheese was phenomenal. I didn't even have like anything else. I just had the mac and cheese, and literally me and my brother-in-law split the bacon burnt ends, the pulled pork, the brisket. I couldn't handle getting the ribs. I have to do that next time. Everything was immaculate in that place. It was absolutely fantastic. So that's been I want to go back next week, and I just went to it last week.
Dude, I love burnt ends. Where's it at in Central Florida for the people who
So
are?
it's on Curry Ford, off Curry Ford. I forgot the small Crystal Lake and Curry Ford.
Okay.
So there's got some good places around there. Like that's where like Pizzeria Bruno's at. And that's like it's not that far from. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Like Zaza's has been there for a minute, but yeah, it's around that area. They got some good spots there to eat.
Yeah, it's definitely like there are many Central Florida of the many things that I enjoyed living in Orlando for. Food was great. Like there's just at a loss, never a loss of good restaurants, I should say, and different types of food too. Like that was the biggest thing with Orlando is it's not just like you get Southern food there, but you get so many other just elite types of from all the Caribbean spots, whether it's Cuban, whether it's Jamaican, whether it's Puerto Rican food is great. You got all the like, I don't know. I mean, I miss Greek corner a ton. Like some of the best Greek food I've ever
Yes.
had. Like it's just everything was there's so many restaurants. Like I said, we could do another
I
10
think
minutes
people when they
easy.
think of food, they automatically think of, like the New Yorks, the Chicagos, the Phillies, the Californias. Like I get that, right? Then they think of regional, like Texas barbecue or Kansas City beef. Like I get that, but like Florida, Central Florida has a lot of really good restaurants. I mean, hello, I ran a whole like segment on the radio for it. Like they're all over the place. You just have to look for them. But they're not hard to find, man. If you really want to explore Central Florida, whatever type of cuisine you want, there's going to be a good spot for it. You want wings, you can get it. You want Filipino food, you can find it. You want good sushi, my goodness, we have Michelin award-winning sushi spots. Like we have legit great spots to eat. So people just think of Florida and just think of, chains and all that stuff. But that was many, many, many moons ago. That is not the case anymore.
Oh, it's Orlando. And like, look, it's the reality too with Orlando is that everyone's going to think it's a theme park, which like, and obviously like, listen, man, it is like, no one's going to deny the impact that Disney and Universal and all that have on the culture there. And to be fair, a lot of those restaurants, including the Michelin starred ones, are tied to hotels. Some of the best
Yeah.
restaurants you can eat at in Orlando are tied to hotels, but I'm telling you, I always said, don't sleep in Orlando as just a city period. Like truly loved living there. I was blessed to live there for the 5.5 years that we did. Definitely don't sleep on the food. Like as good of a food destination as I've been to in the country. Like I'm not going to pretend like it's New York City, but they got everything. They got pretty much anything you could ever ask for in Orlando, and it's going to be quality. It's going to be like again the different types of it matters too. Like I think about I think about going on Mills and going to Little Saigon and all the restaurants there. Like
Yeah.
it's
Little
good.
Saigon's going to close.
Is it?
Yeah, they're retiring.
Oh, that's a bummer.
So
That's such a shame.
they're not selling it, they're
I mean,
just closing it out.
I mean, good for them. Like respect. You got to
Yeah.
go if you go out on top. Oh man, brutal.
You talk
I
about
mean,
that area with Stasio's, badass sandwiches. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so much good food there. But yeah, Little Saigon is going to close their doors, man. I don't know if they actually already did, but I saw the news the other day that they were retiring and writing off.
Man, that's a shame. Shout out to them for going on top though. Hell of a run. They'll be missed.
Yes.
If you want us to launch the food podcast, let us know. But thank you thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. My guy Andy Jordan, always a pleasure. Follow Andy on Twitter at Andy's Magic Minute. Amazing. As for his wishes, we didn't get too much into Magic, so we're gonna have to bring him back at some point during the season once they get going a little bit, talk some more there. Justin will be back next week, and we'll catch you guys soon.